It is my honor to call to order the 52nd AFRAA Annual General Assembly. The first item on the program is the opening ceremony. We have 5 speeches that have been lined up during the ceremony. The first one is TAAG Angola, the President and host of AFRAA, followed by AFRAA's Secretary General, and afterwards we'll have ICAO Regional Director, Eastern and Southern Africa Office, who will be followed by IATA Director General and CEO. Then the African Union Commissioner for Infrastructure will have the opening speech by the Minister of Transport of the Republic of Angola. Without further ado, I kindly call upon the President of AFRAA, Mr. Rui Carreira, to give his speech.
Saudações. On behalf of TAAG Angola Airlines, the host of the AFRAA 52nd AGA, I extend our customary Angolan warm welcome to all of you, our distinguished guests. This year, 2020, is a year never experienced in all facets of our lives. That makes our AFRAA 52nd AGA a very special one. The AGA that will be kept in the annals of history for a very long time. For the first time in our lives, we are meeting in a virtual setting, meaning that we have to meet and yet we are distantly from each other. At the same time, I'm confident that this remote meeting will encourage all of us to be resilient as we face the challenges of the day with the determination to secure our future. We believe that we will overcome the pandemic and we will be together next year, conditions permitting. Unfortunately, 2020 has been a very difficult year for our industry, mainly for us African carriers. Our struggles come from way before the pandemic, and with the current situation, many African airlines have faced the biggest challenge of their lives. Although the upcoming years will be challenging and recovery may be slow, we should not be discouraged. We should see the positive side. This is a time of resetting, restructuring, and setting the new course of us, African Airlines. This is indeed our wake-up call. We must embrace the moment and take heed of the challenges as we map the way forward. This special AGA is a perfect occasion to follow up on several subjects to improve the aviation environment on our continent. Today, we may be distant physically, but I'm sure we are closer in spirit to openly discuss solutions and ideas for a rapid recovery and explore common benefits for the African airlines. TAAG Angola Airlines expresses its immense sadness that this year we are not able to physically enjoy the unique experience of our rich Angolan culture and breathtaking sights. We had prepared an exciting adventure for all of you, which I'm optimistic next year will be possible. On behalf of AFRAA and TAAG Angola Airlines, I welcome you all to the special 52nd AGA, and I truly hope the best of discussions and that you enjoy the today program. Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you, AFRAA President and CEO of TAAG Angola Airlines, Mr. Rui Carreira, for the speech, which was recorded. We now have the next speaker, Mr. Abde Berthe, AFRAA Secretary General, who will give us his welcome remarks. Mr. Berthe, you have the floor.
Thank you. Honorable Ricardo de Abro, Minister of Transport of the Republic of Angola, Mr. Rui Carreira, President of AFRAA and CEO of TAAG Angola Airlines, Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid, African Union Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, Mr. Alexandre de Juniac, Director General and CEO of IATA, Mr. Tefera Mekonnen, Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Mr. Barry Kashambo, Regional Director, International Civil Aviation Organization, Eastern and Southern Africa. It is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you to this 52nd General Assembly on behalf of the African Airlines Association. We are delighted to have you with us to participate in this assembly in a virtual format. Your attendance serves as a reminder to us all just how important the African airlines industry is. I wish to express our immense gratitude to His Excellency the Transport Minister of the Republic of Angola for gracing this assembly with his presence on this program. I wish to acknowledge the high-level representatives from the African Union Commission, the ICAO, IATA, AFCAC, and many others. I can't cite everyone. Your involvement and interest in our association. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all committed to overcoming the unprecedented challenges raised by the COVID-19 pandemic impacting our industry. During these difficult times, I wish to express AFRAA solidarity with the aviation industry's supply chain. As an aviation community, the COVID-19 have been the occasion to work closely together to find solutions and determine actions for the start and recovery of the aviation sector. We need to keep alive the ongoing efforts to support the resumption and foster a resilient air transport system in Africa. We will keep by our mission to promote and serve African airlines and champion Africa's aviation industry. Better skies for Africa remains the pillar of all our actions. This year, our theme is redefining air transport for a new era. It provides an opportunity to rethink our industry and develop a winning perspective for the airline industry, which is instrumental for the economic development and integration of the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, before I hand over to the Master of Ceremony, I want to say once more on behalf of the African Airlines Association, welcome. We are delighted to have so many of you around online. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Berthe, for your welcome remarks. We now have a speech by Mr. Tefera, Mekonnen Tefera, Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission.
Honorable delegates, Secretary General of the African Airlines Association, dear Chief Executive Officers of African Airlines, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to join you virtually for this 52nd AFRAA Annual General Assembly during these challenging times when the world is faced with a global pandemic that has disrupted the global air transport industry. I wish to extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this General Assembly for your kind invitation to AFCAC to present this keynote address. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for having us and for your continued support and collaboration with AFCAC. It's my hope and prayer that all of you and your families are all in good health. Distinguished participants, the COVID-19 pandemic has had unprecedented impact on our industry. Massive loss of revenues in jobs are being witnessed by airlines, civil aviation authorities, air navigation service providers, and airports. The ripple effect has spread to other strategic institutions and pillars that drive the air transport contribution to the African economy. Despite the impact of pandemic, we believe that the aviation industry has been put in a situation where it must focus on every opportunity to recover, build resilience, and become sustainable through rethinking its strategies and collaborations in ways that will truly redefine air transport for a new era. AFCAC, in recognition of the importance of the aviation industry in Africa at the onset of the pandemic, embarked on activities aimed at supporting and reducing further damage caused by COVID-19. AFCAC coordinated the African immediate relief and recovery measures with various stakeholders, including AFRAA, on development of immediate relief measures for the African aviation sector for the consideration of the Ministerial Subcommittee of Transport of the AUC. Following this action, some important resolutions were taken as a result to support the African aviation sector. AFCAC, through the leadership of the African Union, amongst others, was to ensure Africa's aviation sector response to the impact of COVID-19 followed a structured and well-coordinated approach for a successful restart and sustainable recovery. You may wish to recall that the high-level task force report not only adopted the ICAO key principles and measures as part of its framework, but also developed 15 African-specific recommendations grouped as financial, technical, sustainability, communication, policy harmonization, cooperation, and quality data and capacity building. In coordination with the respective African civil aviation authorities, AFCAC has been championing the harmonization and coordination of the implementation of COVID-19 protocols to effectively support our African airlines in the resumption of international travel. With regard to the issue of financial aid and support, AFCAC continues to work with the African Union Commission, the World Bank, the African Exim Bank, and African Development Bank to mobilize the required financial resources to support African aviation, not only for the restart and the recovery, but to put the African air transport industry on a renewed path towards sustainability. During the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, AFCAC has also continued to undertake work towards putting in place a mechanism to assist all eligible African airlines achieve IOSA and EASA certification. To this effect, we'll be signing agreements with AFRAA and IATA as part of the African Development Bank Institutional Support Project to implement the SATM. The SATM, as a flagship project of the African continent to liberalize air transport, continues to grow from strength to strength. I am happy to inform you that 34 African states have signed the solemn commitment to join the SATM and unconditionally open their markets to eligible African airlines. We will continue to solicit the views of African airlines, for instance through the questionnaire circulated to African airlines on challenges faced in the implementation of the provisions of the YD. We have reviewed the concrete measures for the implementation of the SATM and in the process of development of key performance indicator to measure implementation of the YD by member states. All these are aimed at supporting states and the African airlines benefit from the various opportunities offered by SATM and other continental policies. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt on the level of commitment to support the aviation sector in Africa by the various institutions. There is also no doubt on the contribution of aviation to the socio-economic development of the continent. The challenges that threaten the benefits promised by aviation in Africa must be addressed in order to increase Africa's share in global air transport. There is no better time than now. We have seen how innovation has become the new normal. We must equally be innovative in aviation. Existing African continental initiatives such as the SATM, the Common Free Trade Area, and other Agenda 2063 flagship project provide a good basis for the growth of intra-Africa air travel ready to be exploited by the African airlines. The sheer population of the African continent is another opportunity to expand air travel. In concluding, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to remind us all that challenges are numerous. The road ahead is difficult, but in order for us to realize the aviation benefits, achieve the African Union Agenda 2063 and fully redefine air transport in the new era, I conclude by calling all of us to action, especially the African airlines. 1. Operating under the SATM to freely fly and fly without hindrance based on their own economic consideration and subject to safety and security concerns of the aviation authorities in order to improve access to air travel for Africans, support regional integration, boost intra-Africa trade and tourism. Any challenge encountered to be brought to the attention of AFCAC, which is the executing agency of the YD. 2. Encourage your respective states to fully liberalize air transport. Join the single African air transport market. Bring to the executing agency of the YD any challenge faced in the implementation of the YD in general, and from those who are party to certain, thus African Airlines take advantage of the vast market provided by intra-Africa travel. While the COVID-19 has affected African aviation industry, it has also presented to all of us with an opportunity to collaborate, look inwards, and unleash the full African potential and grow together into the Africa we want. For this, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Secretary General of AFRAA and his team for working collaboratively during this challenging time. I thank you all.
Thank you to AFCAC Secretary General Mr. Tefera, Mekonnen Tefera, for the keynote address speech. We now have a speech by ICAO Regional Director for Eastern and Southern African Office, ESAF, Mr. Barry Kashambo.
Honorable Minister of Transport of the Republic of Angola, distinguished President of AFRAA, Secretary General of AFRAA and colleagues at AFRAA, Secretary General of AFCAC, airline representatives, industry partners, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the ICAO Council President, the ICAO Secretary General, and the entire ICAO fraternity, I wish to express my heartfelt appreciation to the Republic of Angola for hosting this very important 52nd AFRAA Annual General Assembly under the theme Redefining Air Transport for a New Era. Let me extend my gratitude to Mr. Rahmane Berthe for the opportunity to give a goodwill message at a time when the aviation industry is recovering from a devastating halt due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Never before has the air transport sector faced such tough moments and economic downtowns where public travel and tourism came to a complete standstill globally. The critical relevance of aviation, the livelihood of citizens was exposed, and so was the dependence of all sectors, including international organizations, national governments, and private organizations. ICAO commends all stakeholders for the ongoing efforts to the restart and recovery of commercial air transport and services and the assurance of a safe, healthy, secure, and environmentally friendly operations. It is critical that we work together to see that air travel recovery is given priority through provision of necessary financial stimuli, committed political will, and continuous improvements of international alignments, while recognizing that the COVID-19 crisis provides an opportunity to build a resilient future. The ICAO Council Civil Aviation Recovery Task Force report and the related takeoff guidelines, together with other implementation tools and supported by the African Union High-Level Task Force report, are being employed by many states and organizations towards realization of the alignment efforts of aviation. ICAO remains steadfast in providing leadership of global and regional coordination of the aviation sector and the provision of international support to air transport towards the economic reactivation procedures being explored by states. Ladies and gentlemen, as we strive to forge ahead in the struggle to build a sustainable aviation industry, Let's focus on harnessing synergies and strengthening our collaboration while ensuring that we tighten our weak links. In these challenging times, our success is only as strong as our bond and cooperation. I wish you a happy annual General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barry Kashambo, for the keynote address speech. Next, we have a speech by IATA DG and CEO, Mr. Alexandre de Juniac.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Geneva. It's a pleasure to address the 52nd AFRAA AGM. Thank you, Abde for the kind invitation, and thank you to AFRAA for being a strong and effective partner in this crisis. We are working as a team to help our members when they need us most. We are in the middle of the biggest crisis aviation has ever faced. But as leaders of Africa's air transport industry, you know that firsthand. Airline revenues have collapsed. Fleets are grounded. And you are taking extreme actions just to survive. We all support efforts to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. But policymakers must know that this has come at a great cost to jobs, individual freedoms, and entire economies. For aviation in Africa, the numbers are staggering. Traffic is down 89%. Revenue losses are expected to reach $6 billion, and this figure is likely to be revised downwards in our next forecast. But the impact is much broader. The consequences of the breakdown in connectivity are severe. 5 million African livelihoods are at risk, and aviation-supported GDP could fall by as much as $37 billion. That's a 58% fall. We have a health crisis, and it is evolving into a jobs and economic disaster. Fixing it is beyond the scope of what the industry can do by itself. We need governments to act, and act fast to prevent a calamity. I call on you to join IATA in urging governments to address two priorities. The first is unblocking committed financial relief. Airlines will go bust without it. Already 4 African carriers have ceased operations and 2 are in administration. Without financial relief, many others will follow. Over $31 billion in financial support has been pledged by African governments, international finance bodies, and other institutions. These include the African Development Bank, the African Union, and the International Monetary Fund. Unfortunately, pledges do not pay the bills, and little of this funding has materialized. And let me emphasize that while we are calling for relief for aviation, this is an investment in the future of the continent. It will need financially viable airlines to support the economic recovery from COVID-19. The second priority is to safely reopen borders, using testing without quarantine. People have not lost their desire to travel. Border closures and travel restrictions make it effectively impossible. 44 countries in Africa have opened their borders to regional and international air travel. In 20 of these, passengers are still subject to a mandatory 14-day quarantine. Who would travel under such conditions? Systematic testing before departure provides a safe alternative to quarantine and a solution to stop the economic and social devastation caused by COVID-19. These are the darkest days in aviation's history. But as leaders of this great industry, I know that you will share with me confidence in the future. Our customers want to fly. They desire the exploration that aviation enables. They need to do international business that aviation facilitates. and they long to reunite with family and loved ones. Our industry will, no doubt, be changed by this crisis, but flying will return. Aircraft will be back in the skies. The resilience of our industry has been proven many times. We will rise again. We are the business of freedom. For Africa, that is the freedom to develop and thrive. And that is not something people on this continent will forget or lose their desire for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexandre de Juniac, IATA DG and CEO, for the keynote address speech. Next, we have a speech by Africa Union Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, Dr. Amani Abou-Zeid.
Your Excellencies, Minister of Transport of Angola, my brothers, President of AFRAA, Secretary General of AFRAA, the Director General and CEO of IATA, the Regional Director of ICAO, Secretary General of AFCAC, CEOs of African Airlines, all protocol observed. First of all, I wish to thank you for inviting AUC to deliver a keynote address during this 52nd AFRAA Annual General Assembly, whose theme is Redefining Air Transport for a New Era. I would like at the outset to congratulate and thank AFRAA Secretariat and the Government of Angola for successfully organizing this General Assembly. Distinguished participants, in 2015, the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments of the African Union adopted the Declaration on the creation of a single African air transport market and launched it later on 29th of January 2018. SATAM is among the 12 flagship projects of the African Union agenda. Its main objective is to create one single African transport market that can liberalize air transport services and drive economic integration. As a flagship project of AU Agenda 2063, the SATAM strongly supports the Continental Free Trade Agreement and free movement of persons. Currently, 34 states with a total population of more than 800 million people, accounting for 61% of the population on the African continent and 89% of intra-African air transport market, are solemnly committed and have opened up their markets to each other unconditionally, and the potentials are even higher to capture additional millions of passengers within the SATAM group of states. A prioritized action plan for operationalization of SATAM was adopted in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire on the 7th March 2018 and is updated each year by all our key partners, including AFRAA, of course, and IATA and ICAO, with overall coordination by our SATAM executing agency, AFCAC. The main pillars of this action plan include advocacy for all members in Africa to join this market, the harmonization of air services agreements between states, resources mobilization and strengthening of the executing agency, AFCAC, finalization of the regulatory instruments of the SATAM, aviation infrastructure, and of course, safety and security and aviation financing. As you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a detrimental effect on the African civil aviation industry, actually on the civil aviation industry globally as well, and has particularly delayed our continental efforts to develop the sector, including the operationalization of the single African air transport market, SATAM. It is projected that African airports will experience revenue losses of 51% for the year 2020 due to restrictions introduced on aviation activities, with the loss estimated at $2.2 billion as per analysis released recently, and over $8 billion US for African airlines. Furthermore, cash liquidity challenges and fluctuations in foreign currencies have resulted in job losses to African airlines, airports, and other strategic institutions and pillars that drive air transport contributions to African economy. At the African Union, the Infrastructure and Energy Department, through its organs and especially AFCAC, We have taken initiatives and interventions in collaboration with other stakeholders such as ICAO, WHO, and other entities to contain the spread of COVID-19 and position the aviation sector on a new path to restart, to recover, and to be sustainable. In this regard, the high-level task force under the coordination of the African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, has developed recommendations and measures which are aligned to the ICAO Council Aviation Recovery Task Force CART. And its guidance towards a seamless restart and recovery of aviation in Africa has been put into implementation since early July this year. The restart and recovery strategies have been shared with all member states and are now being, as I said, implemented with coordination coordinated by AFCAC and African Directors of Civil Aviation Authorities. The role of the African Airlines and AFRAA in these important stages of operationalization of SATAM and in the recovery of the industry from now on cannot be overemphasized. It is important that all our member states join this single African transport market and remove restrictions in terms of capacity, frequency, and granting of traffic rights. However, this will not be possible without the involvement of the African Airlines, especially with regard to improving connectivity and creating a safe, secure, and affordable air transport industry in Africa. And of course, the post-COVID-19 recovery will also put even further or represents a further opportunity for our airlines to benefit and to leverage each other across the continent. So joining the SATAM would be I think it's very opportune now more than ever. The African Union Commission shall continue to mobilize all the required resources to undertake its important role of advocacy towards more member states to join the benefits of SATAM is the operationalization, and this remains our priority in the post-COVID-19. As I said, AUC has currently initiated a continental study on the benefits of full liberalization of air transport services through the implementation of SATAM, and it will be an important tool to convince more states to join and also formulate policy recommendations that can be submitted to our member states for further adoption at the ESAF. We are at the AU very much committed to coordinate ongoing efforts by AFCAC, by AFRAA, by IATA to standardize the taxes, the fees, the charges levied on airlines or airline operations by establishing continental experts working groups that will come up with recommendations for consideration and adoption by our member states, as well as I said, the guidance, the guidelines, the measures to be implemented, especially in this very critical phase. Distinguished participants, this annual General Assembly should provide an opportunity to clearly identify all the challenges faced by African airlines, not only to reopen operations and recover from COVID-19 pandemic, but also to reposition the African aviation industry on a new path towards sustainability and also towards making use of the new technologies and digitalization that is happening. It is high time that the airline operation in its various forms to be given priority in AFRA's 2020 and onward, in order to establish stronger and more efficient airlines with business models that will allow them to compete internationally and improve Africa's air traffic market share, which is currently very low, as you know, at less than 3%. I would like also to re-emphasize the point about the use of new technologies that is now increasingly important, especially in this phase or starting from now under the COVID-19, which would help make the operations more seamless and stressless for passengers. And this is an opportunity really for us to rethink not only the business model of the African airlines, but also the actual operation of the airlines, and make use of this the digitalization that has taken place or is now being implemented full force across the globe, and especially in Africa. My brothers and sisters, and of course this is again a very timely meeting. I wish we were meeting in person, but then again it's good that this virtual mean allows me to be with you, and I would like to reiterate our commitment to support your proposals in the regard in going forward and to undertake the necessary advocacy to AU policy organs and the African governments. You are of course aware that the forecast for growth air transport in Africa has been among the top worldwide as per the situation prior to COVID-19. This has tremendous potential, which means there is tremendous potential for growth and socio-economic development for our African airlines. The full operationalization of the single African air transport market, supported by appropriate infrastructure and regulatory framework, will offer a great opportunity for African airlines to improve connectivity between African countries, increase routes and flights between the various capital cities of Africa, and also to reduce the cost of air travel. I wish to end by once again thanking AFRAA for successfully organizing this General Assembly. I wish to reiterate our commitment to establish important an open link and continuous dialogue among African airlines and the African member states in order to implement the recommendations that will result from the discussions. I wish you all fruitful deliberations, and I thank you.
Thank you, Her Excellency Amina Abou-Zeid, for the keynote speech. We now proceed to the official opening of the AFRAA Annual General Assembly. I invite the guest of honor representing the government of Angola, Honorable Ricardo do Abreu, Minister of Transport of Angola, to make his speech and officially open the 52nd Annual General Assembly.
Secretary General of African Airlines Association, representatives of African Union Commission, representatives of the International Civil Aviation Organization, representatives of African Civil Aviation Commission, representatives of International Air Transport Association, members of the press, our host TAAG Angolan Airlines, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me express my sincere appreciation for the great honor I've been given to officiate the open ceremony of this magnificent conference of African Airlines Association AFRAA Annual General Assembly. Likewise, on behalf of the Angolan government, it takes me an immense pleasure to address you all, even though electronically, and give a warm welcome to all the attendees of this important conference. There is no doubt that this has been a very challenging year for all of us, in all spheres of life, in particular the aviation industry, which is amongst the most affected sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all conscious of the importance that this sector represents in every aspect of our lives, and the enabling role aviation plays in facilitating trade and growing our economies is undeniable. As we collectively navigate this stormy weather, we seek to emerge from the pandemic more resilient, more organized, more determined to succeed than before. In the specific case of Angola, we have been fully committed to preserve civil aviation ecosystem with the full government support. We have organized several humanitarian flights to help and alleviate the effects of the pandemic during the past months, bringing home more than 80,000 Angolans and residents that were retained abroad and more than 80,000 tons of biosafety materials. Furthermore, we have opened our international airspace with effect from 21st September, enabling airlines to commence services from their local hubs into Luanda. This was all done in coordination with our national health authorities and also following the health protocols and guidelines set by World Health Organization and ICAO. Long before the pandemic, Angola had established its commitment to develop the aviation sector. A new legal and regulatory framework of our Civil Aviation Authority was recently revised, empowering our Civil Aviation Authority to be more proactive in not only overseeing the sector, but in coming up with progressive policies that will enable Angola to align and grow with the fourth industrial revolution led economies of the world. Moreover, the country is investing in infrastructure, such as the new international airport of Luanda, and we are strongly committed to improve human capital quality, which will enable our staff to perform according to industry standard recommended practices. It is also worth mentioning the extension and splitting of the long-established public company responsible for airport management and navigation at the same time, which resulted into two separate entities, SGA, the Airport Infrastructure Management Company, and ENA, National Air Navigation Company, a state-owned company whose responsibility is to promote a much safer and secure navigation and air traffic control of the Angolan flight information region. Although we are not signatories as yet of the single African air transport market SATAN, Angola is committed to the spirit of the Yamoussoukro decision and has already been implementing several air services agreements with our sister countries and airlines within SATAN principles. Today, more than ever before, we encourage you, the African aviation industry, to deliberate and come up with game-changing resolutions for the benefit of our continent and its people. I am confident that we are all up to the challenge, and we anxiously await your recommendation with excitement, knowing that the future is in your capable hands. We would have loved to have you in Angola with us in person this time around, but health is paramount and we must not throw caution to the wind. The COVID-19 outbreak has triggered a cascade effect beyond borders into countries, society, and people's lives in general. Africa has been hit as hard as other affected regions, and aviation has never faced a similar global crisis. As Africans, we are resilient. Therefore, I'm confident that we will overcome the pandemic. We expect next year, 2021, things will be different and better, and we will be honored to welcome you here in Angola. We will make sure that you will have a memorable and fruitful 53rd Annual General Assembly in Angola. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, it is now my pleasure to declare the 52nd African Airlines Association Annual General Assembly officially opened and wish you all a successful event. Thank you very much. Merci e obrigado.
Thank you, Honorable Abde, for your opening speech and for officially opening the 52nd AFRAA Annual Assembly. We definitely do look forward to convene in Angola physically next year for the 53rd Annual Assembly.